I'm going to introduce Hilary with some words. Artist, art director, graphic designer, art educator, mother of two, scramble queen, fashion plate. After nearly 2 decades of editorial art direction in New York City for publications like Vanity Fair and New York Magazine, Hilary has taken that experience to pursue a vibrant freelance career here based in the Berkshires. She participates also in the Fresh Air Fund, which is an organization that places New York City children from low-income families into the country here. She also volunteers with disabled adults, teaching them art classes and facilitating creative experiences for them. As a mother of a disabled child, this community is very dear to her. Just recently, Hilary has been honored with a grant from the Connecticut Office of the Arts to open up a design studio that will host community workshops in town. That's exciting.
Yay. Way to go,
Hilary. I have known Hilary for over 15 years. We would have lovely times together when she visited me in Norfolk. I could feel her soak up the magic of the natural beauty of this village. About 4 years ago, Hilary made a life shift and she decided to move to Norfolk with her 2 children. She gathers her inspiration from the solitude of nature, the joy of color, and from her playfulness of experimenting with new ideas and techniques. She is a cheerful beacon in our town where she is so respected and beloved. Here we are, Hilary. Have fun.
All right. Thank you, Eileen. And thank you to everyone who is able to join us tonight. I appreciate you being here and taking the time to tour my studio with me. As Eileen mentioned, I sort of got my start in New York City before moving up here doing graphic design. So I thought I'd start with that area of the studio, which I should say is also my dining room.
All right. Multitask.
Yes. So this is my workstation where I do most of my graphic design on this Mac. As you can see on the desk there are a few collages that I recently completed for a woman's website. She's an interior decorator, also a spatial alchemist. So she comes into your home and helps you sort of have your home be a visual representation of what you want in your life. So that was a very fun project. And I'll turn my computer on. I have a few things on there to show you as well. And then off to the side here, I have another graphic design project that I did for a company called Reflect. I did promotional materials for them as well as their package design. And this was all during the pandemic. When I went through this with Kelly earlier, she was sort of wondering what exactly that meant. And that was everything from helping to choose different packages, like the tubes and bottles themselves. The logo was already created. So I worked on finding the right tones of gray for the type on there, while also trying to fit all the ingredients, the barcode, all of these little icons that needed to be added on there. So it's sort of a typographic design challenge, but fun to do. Having been at magazines for so long, it was nice to break into a little packaging design. Let's see, I've included on my screen here sort of what a layout like that looks like on the computer before it goes to press. They call those die lines. I also have up here this funny illustration I did for a website called Hodinky about the cicadas reemerging. And I show you all of this just because I know some of you may know that I do a lot of painting with pastels and burls, but a lot of my work is also on the computer. And kind of going into the burls, I have this image up of the Berkshire products, lumber gallery, I'll call it. That's in Ashley Falls. I first became acquainted with Berkshire products on a trip to New Hampshire with my boyfriend to Lake Sunapee. He was looking for some wood, and I just got so lost in the burl section. I found a small burl there, which I'll show you here. It's on the left. And that was one of the first times I worked on maple burls. I had used pastels on wood prior to that, but not this sort of like organic shape that had a character of its own before you even began adding color and design. So I brought this one up to Lake Sunapee, and it was sort of like a fall foliage motif that I did. I think the following year is this one on the right. That's also at Lake Sunapee. Another large burl, and sort of just sitting on the dock, watching the water splash against the dock, looking out at this beautiful scene, and you know, getting the where the lake meets the trees and the clouds and the sky, and sort of making it an abstract version of sort of what I'm feeling when I'm there.
Beautiful.
Thank you. If anyone has any comments as I go along, please feel free to jump in. Passing over to a couple more burls. Let's see, so back in New York, I think around 2015, I started taking a pastels class with Shelley Haven at the School of Visual Arts. You can see in the middle there, there's a board that has flowers. It's a masonite board. That was one of the first drawings I did with her. She's really into natural scenes, and it was very inspiring for me as far as using pastels to capture flowers and plant life. And that's been a huge part of the directions that my work flows in now. This larger piece is titled Upstream Under the Milky Way, which was an idea brought to me by my 9-year-old daughter. She's probably 7 at the time. We had all of this at our dining table, and she said, "Mom, which one is your favorite one in here?" And I told her it was that one, and she was like, "I like that one too. It kind of reminds me of flowers floating upstream under the Milky Way." And I loved that, and I thought, yes, that's how I feel about it. That's how I feel about us. I don't know, it felt very right. And it was really fun to work on that and use gouache and pastels sort of mixed in on these huge pieces. And then to the left, you see there's like a white columbine flower. That is a piece that was inspired by a road trip to Wyoming. I'll bring you a little bit closer over to that. You can actually see there's a bit of a road. It's indicated a little bit in that lower left corner. With the gray and the dotted yellow lines. A lot of the inspiration I get is from various vacations and trips and seeing flowers that I don't usually see, and seeing all the greens and the blues of nature that I bring back with me. I'll let you know this again, but in September, I'll be part of a group show at the New Marlborough Meeting House titled Wonder in the Wander. And this is one of the pieces that will be featured in that, illustrating the wonder that I've found in my wanders and road trips. Again, there's a couple more pastels on the burls. A lot of times I find myself using every color that I have. And with this larger piece back here, titled Fully Loved, which, if it doesn't sell, is going to my gal Senta for her wedding next spring. I really tried to tell myself, just stick to a lesser palette, just use cool colors. And then I kind of started that way, and then there was something that happened that felt like a rush of blood and passion, and I just poured it on there down the center. But you know, I do really love that piece, and I think that I'm glad that I added that red to sort of break apart the blue and bring a real strong visual center point on there. I think I'm going to move on from some of the burl talk, unless anyone has any questions about that before I move into some of the portraiture that you saw in the background.
I have a question. This
Yes,
is Kelly. So when you say you just poured that brighter color on that last burl, like, do you literally mean you just poured it on there?
No, I usually work with them on an easel, sort of how you've seen what I have here. It was more like a pouring of emotion with a pastel crayon. And just kind of rubbing it on there.
Yeah, I have no experience with this sort of thing, so I felt like I needed to just know.
Right. No, it wasn't a literal pour.
I was just thinking, it's not really a question, but a reflection. I just think it's so interesting how a lot of these are from your travels and what you were looking at. And it just makes it so much more meaningful to hear the story behind the painting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just saw a question pop up and now it's gone, but I think it was sort of what initially sparked this.
Yeah, there's two
Inspiration.
questions, Hilary. It's from
Okay.
Erica Collins, and she says, who inspired you to begin creating art and at what age? And have your children inherited your appreciation for art and creativity?
Well, Farah, are you paying attention in there? I see her. She's hiding behind a glass cube. Well, my mom was and is an artist. So I always grew up with a little art studio, even if it was just in the closet of our apartment space. She would have a drafting table in there with a bucket of markers. I feel like I'll take you over to my bucket of markers that's here now. These Prismacolors have been lifelong in our family, and she was a graphic designer and did a lot of screen printing work, and also illustration and watercolor. So I always had that as a part of my life. I also sometimes think that my aesthetic comes from cartoons I watched, or like Pee-wee's Playhouse. I think probably was a visual explosion that just made me think like, wow, anything is possible, and color and graphics and that sort of thing. And my daughters are into it as well. I would say Ayasha less so. She is kind of on the move a lot, but when Farah sits down to it, she makes really beautiful artworks herself. Another thing that it was Erica Collins who asked that question, and we grew up together. And so she knows very well that I have been drawing portraits or cartoon figures of people since I was 9. And I had a whole notebook called Faces from Places Around the World. And it had all these different people doing different funny things. And so I've always been drawn to portraiture too. So I will segue into that now.
Oh, wait,
Because-
Hilary, there was one more question that goes
Okay.
back to the burl. So before we segue.
Okay. Yes, please.
This is from your friend Senta. Can you talk about how it's different to paint on wood than on other mediums?
Yes. I love painting on wood. I think that being able to use my fingers on these burls and rub pastel into them feels very tactile and pleasing in that sense. I feel like really one with the piece of wood versus paper, where it feels processed and it came from who knows where, and a plastic thing, and I had to go to the store. These feel like straight from the earth, straight from something very natural, and they have such a cool pattern. Actually, I have a little something over here. It's one of the ones I recently purchased that's still blank, and you just start to get a feel of what could that be, and what is it, what will it look like when I'm through with it. And so that's sort of a special thing too, that the shape can kind of help to direct which way the artwork will head. And again, as I was saying, I often use pastels on these. And those are my favorite friends there. I just break them up and take them around with you. And it does have this feeling of also being another earth material, of sort of chalky sand or pigment that you're rubbing onto a very natural form. However, I'm transitioning a little bit more into paint. I used to mix pastel and gouache a lot. And with these pieces, I've had a lot of interest in having them be hung outdoors. So I started to, the one in the background that you see there has actual outdoor paint. So I'm hoping to take some of my inspiration from a recent trip to Santa Fe, where I just became infatuated with hollyhock, only to return to Norfolk and see it in my neighbor's yard. So that was also sort of encouraging too. So I'm hoping to do something that will be a floral pattern on this larger burl here that can be an outdoor piece of artwork if one should choose. So one of the things, I don't know, I do love painting also. It was one of the things I loved most in college. I think I majored in graphic design because I felt like I needed to know that I would have a career or make money. And that was something that I was nervous about and, didn't really have any other cushion besides what I was going to be providing for myself. But I always loved the 6-hour oil painting classes the best. So it's great to be in Norfolk again, where I can freelance and do graphic design, but I have more space and time to pursue those types of things, which includes some volunteer work for CATA, which stands for Community Access to the Arts. It's based in Great Barrington and services adults and people with various disabilities or differently abled people to express themselves through the arts. So when I switch over to the portraits, I started these portraits of my Grandma Diane and my Aunt Sharon when they passed in 2019. I think that was the year. And I couldn't quite get them completed. So you can see on the right is my grandmother Diane. Not quite finished, but I became a Zoom monitor for one of the Community Access to the Arts classes, where a woman named Chalice Mitchell, who's a portrait artist based in North Adams, Massachusetts, was teaching this class to probably nine or so attendants. And I was just there to make sure that everyone got online okay and didn't have any technical difficulties. But I also got to take her class, which was amazing and gave me the tools to complete the portrait of my Aunt Sharon, who's on the left. And on the lower right-hand corner there, you'll see my puppy Apollo, who would have turned 2 this past weekend if it wasn't for cancer. So that was a little tribute that I did to him. And there's also a very quick portrait I did of myself during that class. And it was really fun. It's nice to work with a group of people that is working on art for fun and learning and really supportive of one another and encouraging you while you're working. Okay. All right, I'm set you on my dining room table for a moment and check in. How's everybody doing out there?
Great.
Good. Any other questions that popped up?
When did you take this portrait? When did you sort of hitchhike on that portrait?
Well, I was, I guess it was all of last winter through this spring. I was a Zoom monitor voluntarily for 2 classes. One was with Pat Hogan. She teaches at with 2 different centers in the Berkshire area of adults that live in a residential facility. So they were, it was really hard hit when the pandemic happened because everyone was meeting together daily. And so now it became this virtual situation and a lot of people weren't used to the technology. So I was just there to provide Zoom monitoring. But I did end up getting to substitute teach for Pat in person and virtually. One of the in-persons was with a company called Blue Q, which is in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. And they produce all kinds of cool sort of like funny gifts and hand towels and tote bags and socks, a lot of really neat things. But they also provide jobs for adults with disabilities. And part of their work with that is to have CATA come in and to have an art workshop with them every Friday. So
Wow.
I did that for Pat a couple of times. It was really fun and nice to be in person with people again. We made little paper birds. We did some painting and pastels. I brought in a ton of flowers since that's my favorite thing to draw, it seems. And we drew flowers. It was really nice. So that lasted, it ended, I guess, kind of around the same time school ends. And they switched over to their summer programming. But I'm looking forward to joining them again this fall. This is India.
And we have a visitor.
Yeah, this fall I'll be hopefully on faculty and helping with their CATA Direct program, which is Tuesday afternoons. Artists can come and make things that they then sell to support the organization that provides all these awesome classes.
Beautiful.
So Hilary, we have another question from Senta. How do your various identities as a woman, as a Black woman, as a mom, etc., manifest in your work? Do current events find their way into any of your work?
Current events. Current events don't. Past events, yes. I mean, current events as they are, like with the passing of my aunt and grandmother, you know, that is heavy to me. I don't feel like I necessarily do any sort of political art. I don't know, maybe I do. I'll show you, this is something I did shortly after the murder of George Floyd. And I think it was something where I just wanted to do an illustration of a diverse range of women and brown faces and, you know, different hair colors. And I also made this while I was riding along in my boyfriend's truck cross country. I had my, my colored pencils with me and pens. So I think, you know, I do feel that in a way I want to present brown women to the world visually. It feels right to me. And, you know, as Eileen mentioned too, with my hosting Fresh Air Fund students and working with them in the summer, I think that's part of my dream, is to have, you know, a lot of those kids are minorities, and I would like them to become more familiar with the country and beauty of it, of nature that we have in these regions. So that is important to me. Maybe also like manifesting things. I don't know if that is necessarily directed by anything about my physical body, but as far as what I want and need, I think it's sort of how I got into the cut paper that you see behind me. I think I'm very much inspired by Navajo sand paintings, and that's something that they would make and then they would, you know, blow away in the wind the next day. And it took so much time and effort, and it was supposed to sort of cultivate whatever that person needed at that time. I think, you know, like whoever was involved in the sand painting was there to help heal someone, or, you know, help create a mood that was supposed to be there. I had a really cool book that I was going to show you that I couldn't find right before this started about that topic, but I'll switch over and show you a little bit more what I'm talking about. So these are, I mean, they're very much Navajo inspired. And I think because of that, I'm always like less likely to sell them. They feel like very spiritual to me too. And just that they take time and they have a lot of meaning to me. And it does feel like something I'm trying to bring into my life, whether like this one in particular has all of these, you know, like hunting and gathering type of vibe, and then like desert nights and teepees, or just that outdoor sort of very earth connection sort of thing that I would say I definitely crave regularly. And then also the depiction of a thunderbird as this sort of strong, powerful creature that, you know, can bring strength and power to you. This is one of the more recent ones I did of sort of, I called it my celestial prayer. And I think I've gotten into this sort of idea of duplicating just as almost like a therapeutic paper cutting method of, you know, how many little stars can I cut in exactly the same way and create. But these two up here I did on Earth Day during the pandemic. So there's a, you know, it was a timely topic, and I sort of spaced them away. It was a social distancing kind of thing. And being here in Norfolk, I put little black bears in there. And also, you know, the plant is depicting growth and support of the earth and, you know, moons and all of the things that go on here that are amazing that I wanted as a tribute to the earth that day. I also hadn't really been feeling like making art much during the pandemic, and Earth Day inspired me to do that. Here's another strengthening image.
Yeah, I love that one.
This little guy up here was one of the first ones I just sort of randomly did in 2013, not even really thinking about what a sand painting's purpose was or what the Navajo had in mind when they were creating them. So I've learned a lot about that since then, and have almost felt like a little connection to it, even using pastel, because you have the opportunity to use this pigment to create something. The two here are part of a series based on, these are the winter versions. I have some sort of more green versions, and they are for sale in town at Greenwood's 2058. That's Fox Hyson and Molly's artist collective that's there. So there's I've done about 15 of those, and that was quite enjoyable. This is another larger piece that I've started, and I think I'm going to start trying to incorporate more of the floral designs that I use into the cut paper. There's a little one up top, which is almost just a collage, an abstract collage of some of the scraps of other pieces that I've put together. So I will transition you over to my cutting station. I just sort of finally got this set up with my paper in the drawers down there so that I could easily find the colors I need to do the different designs that I wanted to do. This one in the center was my end of the year card, sort of a totem tribute to the pandemic survivors in my household. Indio, the cat who you just met. Justin, my boyfriend, is sort of the soaring bird. Then I'm the flower. I have Farah with her hamster, rest his soul. Ayasha with her chewy tube in her mouth, and Apollo, rest his soul. These three pine trees are the three pine trees that I see when I'm sitting at this desk. I'm not sure if I can, well, you don't notice them as much in the spring and summer, I guess, as you do in the winter, but I can see them from my desk and I can see them from my bedroom. So they sort of feel like a part of my daily life here in Norfolk as well. So I'll take you over to the table. I showed you sort of the markers and some other sketches I've done. These are also vacation portraits of people. Some ladies I saw on the beach in Miami. I love sort of just doodling while I'm on a trip and keeping notes that way, and then coming home and seeing if they inspire anything else. And a poster that Eileen commissioned me to do for the Greenwood's Puppet Festival. And I had a friend illustrate the library for that, and I did the typography. It's a fun project. Yeah. I think that's my studio. It's this dining room, and it's an upgrade from the dining room I was working in Chelsea in New York City for, I don't know, 10 years. I had a little easel set up in the corner of my kitchen, and that was about it. And a tiny desk with a tiny cutting board so I could still do paper, that sort of thing.
Hilary, when
Yes.
when are you planning on having classes, or where are you going to plan on doing that?
Thank you, Marie. That is something I'm very excited about. I received a grant to have a studio where I could work on things in a larger scale and make more of a mess, and also host workshops. And I'm hoping to do that on Maple Avenue in the old Norfolk construction office.
Perfect.
Yeah. I'm really excited to have those doors open to the kids that are running around in town in Norfolk, and really have it be a place where they can come in and explore different materials and feel comfortable there. And so that is one of my priorities as well. And hopefully that will be seeing the light of day next month.
Wonderful.
Congrats.
Yeah. And of course, I want to
Congratulations.
have workshops for adults too. We can hang out and paint at night.
This kid can't come.
You're there, you're in. So yeah, that's one of my goals with that. And then let's see, what else was I told you about the show. September 17th is the opening in New Marlboro, which should be fun. It's a under 40 group, which, I'm like on the cusp. I was under 40 when I made these pieces, and I'm 40 right now.
Till tomorrow.
So it should be fun. I think it'll be a good opportunity because a lot of times I think at the meeting house, they feel that there isn't enough young artists represented from the area. So it'll be cool to see who's all there and see what people are working on.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, Marie. And also I am starting a company with another woman who lives in Egremont. She is a co-founder of 100 Main, which is a shop in Falls Village with Bunny
Williams.
Yeah, Bunny Williams is the co-founder with her. So her name's Christina Van Hengel, and she had a vision to start a linen collection and liked my artwork. So I did some designs for her, and we are hoping to launch some pretty funky and vibrant floral linens around the holidays.
Beautiful.
Yes, it's called Sonia.
It'll be beautiful.
Thank you. We got the name based off of a picture she sent me of her grandmother's caftan, which was this like really flowy, beautiful thing with like green flowers here and big pink ones here. It was so cool. And I thought, what is her name? I said, she's like, oh, her name's Sonia. Perfect. So yeah, there's a lot of exciting things going on, and I look forward to sharing more. It's almost feeding time.
Well, you're a beautiful, busy woman. Very
Thank
artistic.
you. Thank you.
What other questions do we have for Hilary? So I'll ask another one. Hilary, when you do the paper cutting, do you sketch it out in advance, or how do you even know that, like, the socially distant fairs that you did for Earth Day, how did you even know that's what you wanted to make?
I didn't, and I think that's probably one of the things I like about the way that I work in pastels and cut paper. It's very on the fly. There's been a few times where I might sketch out something that I want to do, and half the time then I don't end up implementing it. So it's usually I just sit down with my papers and start cutting and sort of collaging and arranging paper on a board. I use a lot of those, I forget what it's called. It's like the type of board that comes in a t-shirt or something that's folded at the store. So I always save those kind of things. It's like the back side of a sketchbook to have it in it. So I use that a lot as sort of my background tone, which it also sort of reminds me of wood and a very earthy color. And I just start cutting and placing on there and see what happens. I often use people as sort of a focal subject in those, or an animal.
What are the tools that you use in paper cutting?
Yeah, I have them over here. I'll show you.
Yeah, and Hilary, someone else asked, do you use glue or how do you attach the paper? That was from Janet.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. I have all of those materials to show you. There's just so much here, I forgot. So these are essentially the materials I use. That's my X-Acto blade box in the back there. So I use X-Actos and scissors. This artist tack is an adhesive paper where I will put that onto the back of a piece of paper, peel it off. It sort of adds like a sticky coating to it, and then I stick it onto the surface that I'm applying it to. I've also started using this Mod Podge to use as a glue, and also to seal, like if I do something like this, a bookmark that won't be framed, to sort of solidify everything against the cardboard. Also, Kelly, this is my basket of extras. So, you know, sometimes I sit down and look at what's in here and kind of come up with an idea based on some of the shapes that I've already cut, or the negative space shapes from a different project. This bag to the left is turned into my traveling art supply bag, and I got that for free while I was in Santa Fe this summer at a garage sale. But I thought it was so perfect. It has so much of my kind of interests right in that little satchel. Somebody, the girl there told me it was her grandmother's going out purse.
Oh,
I think people would want to see your cupboard that you had showed me earlier with all your art supplies.
Yeah. All right. I'll take you over there too. So I'm excited about opening a studio workspace, because I think that I have a lot of things that I don't get to use a lot. And if there's people there and we have more opportunity to do some of, you know, do a variety of things, that will be really fun. I try to stay organized. You know, this is sort of a new addition with pens all in this drawer, tapes in this drawer, some of my spray fixatives and other glues back there, broken things that need fixing. I also have this drawer of broken stuff that I've been hanging on to for mosaic type projects. There's some sewing things. I didn't even bother bringing my sewing work into this talk tonight, but you know, it's fun to dabble in all sorts of arts and crafts, for me anyway.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I have one. Hilary, you said you wanted to start working towards the palette of Santa Fe, right?
Mm-hmm. I did.
Like what medium are you gonna, what direction is that gonna take you in?
Well, I did take some notes when I was there. I was very much inspired by the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum in Santa Fe, and also visiting her home in Abiquiu. And I loved all the peaches and kind of pastel pink palette that was there with the sage colored green. So I think you'll see that more in the next pieces I do that are the outdoor wooden burls. I just want to have that be sort of an underlying kind of feeling there, to have that Western kind of high desert color palette incorporated. I find it to be very peaceful, and hopefully it will show through in the artwork.
Do you think you would do any fabric? Have it, you know, be a piece that would be on fabric, because you said you were working with.
Yeah, I think so. I do. I almost feel that what I work on now on these burls, I'll probably be inspired to do something through whatever I create in them for the textile line.
Very exciting.
Thank you. All right.
So any other questions for Hilary? Now is the time. You feel free to unmute, type it into the chat. Hilary, I thought this was great. I mean, I could keep asking you questions. Well, since nobody's asking, could you just hold up that sketch you did of all the different women on the beach? And how long did that take you?
Farah just asked me that today. How many minutes did each one take? And I said, I don't know. I think I probably did like maybe 2 a minute. I was just sort of doodling them. I did this in pencil while I was there, and I went over it with Sharpie marker afterward.
I just love that.
Thank you. It was really fun to do. I had a friend who was just like, you have to have that printed on a beach towel. But I'm not particularly strong at marketing this artwork. So I just make it.
Well, thank goodness you do, because I think it's just wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I had a question. What about, I'd like some more information about the sand painting. Like more
Yes.
detail on like, what does that exactly mean, sand painting?
Sand painting, do I have a pure example of it? I believe I do.
Thank you.
I keep a lot of these. Well, this is a pretty fantastic example. Someone made this in the sand using pigment of like different colored sand. I mean, I can't even possibly fathom how that goes on. But each item on here represents something very significant in Navajo culture, whether like these rainbows, these snakes, the whole, what's north, what's south, what's east and west are all very significant in it. And I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to learn more about it and find out like what the objective was. And from what I've read and learned, it was very much like, you know, if there was something going on in the community that needed some sort of spiritual fixing or altering, the person who was best suited to make the sand painting would come in and do that. And it could take all night. And often a whole group in the tribe would sit all night while they made it. Or the select person who needed that healing at the time was there. And then they would create it, and it's just sand, and then it would blow away. And I think that's one of the things I really love about it too. It's like creating this beautiful thing that will not last forever, which is like everything. Yeah. Sorry. Funny background there. So yeah.
Well, that's just a photo of that
Yes,
artwork
it's just a photo, right?
Okay.
So, and I think for a long time, you know, it wasn't even, it was frowned upon to photograph such works.
I'm sure.
And then, you know, this book that I have, I think it's called Earth is My Mother, Sky is My Father, is one of the first books that really dives into the sand painting healer's technique and plans. So, you know, it's an interesting book. You maybe have it at the Norfolk Library. I don't know.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Other questions for Hilary?
Where do you show your work in Norfolk?
I've had a solo show at the Norfolk Library a couple of years ago where I showed a lot of wood burls. I'm also a part of Norfolk Artists and Friends, and they've been showing at the library as a collective all during the pandemic. So it was virtual tours of the library with our artwork there. Also at the Yale Summer Arts, what do they call it? The Yale Art Shed. They do an annual summer show there as well. And then I've showed at the New Marlborough Meeting House nearby, but that's it.
This was exciting. Thank you, Hilary.
Thanks, Marie. Well,
Yeah, all right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
thank you guys for joining me and touring my studio. I can't wait to do it again in person at the new, hopefully, Maple Avenue studio location. We can all meet together.
Do you have a
make art.
name? Do you
That'd
have
be
a name?
wonderful.
You know, I've had this name Agency 8, which is my Instagram handle and my website. And that's evolved over time. And I think to me, what that means is having agency over your life and what you create, and, you know, knowing that you can do those things infinitely would be the number 8. So I think it'll be Agency 8.
Nice.
Love it.
Yeah.
Do you have an opening date for that yet?
No, I don't, but I will be sure to let you know.
And remind us where the exhibit you're doing up, it's a group show,
Yes.
40 and under.
At the New Marlborough Meeting House in New Marlborough, Massachusetts. It's just, if you follow North Street up
It's
to,
about 8 miles.
yeah, right past the go past the Southfield store to the right, and you'll hit it.
Is that where you showed, it was a group show called Seeing Red?
Yes, yeah,
That's a nice space.
it's beautiful. It's right next to In on the Green.
And what's the date again, Hilary?
September 17th is the opening. It's a
Okay,
Friday
I'll
night.
write that down.
I hope to see you all there.
Okay. Get away.
All right.
Sorry.
Well, thank you for all of these
Thank you.
beautiful comments and encouragement. I appreciate it a lot and was happy to share this with you.
Thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
really
Hilary, thanks
wonderful,
so
Hilary.
much for being here. It was awesome.
Thank you, Hilary.
Thank you, Norfolk Library.